Welcome to Vitalify Unplugged. You're listening to your hosts, Gry and Steph.
In this podcast, we talk about everything health and well-being, science and technology, and ancient wisdom.
This is for the quirky humans navigating the messy middle, looking for the path to true vitality.
It's for the curious minds and tired bodies looking for clarity, energy, and inspiration that works your way. Hey, Steph, what if vitality wasn't something you had to chase or earn, but about choosing differently in the smallest moments?
Welcome to Vitalify Unplugged, where we are going to explore exactly that in our first official episode.
In today's world, so many of us are burnt out, overscheduled, or stuck in survival mode. We've lost touch with what vitality really means.
So this episode is an invitation to redefine vitality, not as a finish line or a flawless routine, but as a relationship you nurture every day with yourself, with your environment, with all things, even amongst the chaos or when you forget. So before we do that, Gry, I want to jump in and just quickly check in and see how you're going and what have you been up to before we dive into this first episode, because it's all interconnected.
Ooh. Everything is interconnected for sure. And, as a neurospicy individual with lots of butterflies flying around, I'm always doing a truck ton of different things. So this past week or so since we last spoke, I've been busy with and good kind of busy, because I like being busy. I like doing a lot of stuff. So I have specifically been reaching out to people about helping them with their AI and automation so that they can actually free up time and do things that are more important. So let's see where that gets to. But even more importantly, I'm laying the final touches on my manuscript for my book. And I've set the launch date for my book as well, which is the 15th of November. My grandma's 120th birthday would have been. She didn't quite make it to that age. She unfortunately passed away at about 80. And but good, rich, long life, I think she had. So I've been sometimes fighting with AI because think it's been, it's not doing what I'm telling it to. And this is actually what I teach people to drive AI with intention and with your own values. But we're getting there. It's going into design this week. Woo!
Oh my gosh,
and I've got
that
so
sounds
much
exciting.
to remove. There are so many more stories I want to tell, but enough's enough. Got to set that bar. Enough's enough. So that's been mine. And what about you this last, I know you've been traveling and things. What have you been up to?
Well, I have had, it's school holidays over here, so we have been visiting family and friends. And so for me, I've been exploring relationships. Like, what is my relationship? Because when living here in Bunurong country in Victoria and then going back to my homelands of South Australia, like rediscovering what is that relationship I have with that land and those people that live there, which are basically my family, and reconnecting with friends. But then how we did that was around a fire and all hanging out together and celebration. It was really cool. So I feel really invigorated to talk about vitality because actually that kind of came up in lots of conversations about what does it mean to have community and like how do we stay connected? And the research that I've been doing shows that people who feel connected to community and to their environment and have better outcomes with their sense of well-being. And that all ties back to what is your relationships with those things. So I've been really, really really digging in and reflecting on relationships to everything. So I'm
So,
excited to explore what my relationship with vitality is, because potentially
yeah.
that's been missing. Or I'm
So,
redefining it.
so
Yeah.
if I paraphrase this, you've actually, by unplugging from computers and all that sort of stuff, you feel vitalified
Yep.
by
I sure
plugging
do.
back in with your family and friends around a campfire. Is that
Oh,
right?
yeah. Fire as an element brings people together. And we got to, I got to sit and witness all these different relationships around this fire, which is the
Mm,
element. And definitely it was like filling up my cup. And as you know, I didn't touch my computer for a whole week.
I know.
And I mean,
I
I
know.
wasn't
I was
necessarily,
waiting.
sorry. I wasn't necessarily off social media, but I wasn't like plugged in proper, like where I
No.
should be. But
Yeah.
it just gave me a little reburst of energy and a new perspective on vitality.
Yeah.
So
So,
yeah,
so this episode, we're kind of calling it "Vitality Begins with a Click," but it's also about looking at the radical act of self-love and also how inflammation fits in. But you're the lovebird. No, what's the right term?
I would
You're
love to be a lovebird, but I'm not sure I am one. But uh,
but you are you're more in the woo than I am, I would say.
I,
In the woo woo.
I love
But
woo.
also,
I'm in a bit of woo.
yeah, and I've never been, and I realized that's probably something to do with how my brain works. I've never been very good at self love or even expressing love to others and myself. So, why don't you
Oh.
kick us off with vitality as a radical act of self love?
So this is something I've been exploring for the last couple of years, radical self-love. Like, and it sounds woo-woo, but it's actually just, what is your relationship with yourself, and how are you talking to yourself, and how are you treating yourself? And I think if we're looking at vitality, if you're kind of like constantly self-talking in a negative way about everything you do, that I feel like that will dampen your vitality and
Mm,
like your energy, and your want to do things. And for me, when previous to this sort of opening up this portal for the journey of radical self-love, I kind of just made myself more busy. Like, I kind of wore being busy as a badge of honor. And what I realized was that was my way of escaping all the things I didn't really want to deal with, my relationship with myself, like, and my
mm,
negative self-talk.
mm, mm,
And so that actually led to surgery and burnout, and, this whole gamut of things that I had to reconnect with myself and find out, rediscover what it is that I like about myself. And
mm,
if there were things that I didn't like, or if I didn't like, then like exploring the shadows around that, and having a go at being brave enough to acknowledge and not necessarily have compassion for myself, I guess. And
yeah.
that is about being present, and that's about being mindful. And so then incorporating all these little micro um, acts during my day
Mm,
to reestablish that connection to my self-love. Because if I love myself, then the way that I talk to myself might ripple out to the way I talk to my kids, to my partner, to my friends. And,
mm.
that kind of spreads out a nice harmony, not to be too people pleasing, because you shouldn't, there's a whole different rabbit
Talk
hole.
to me about people pleasing. We do all need to.
Yeah.
I only just learned to do this thing, right? Bit of love, bit of
What,
self
this
love.
one?
Yeah, I don't know how to do. Oh, look, that's better. I like to do it like that. But I do think that it is important to learn to receive and accept love as well.
That's
So
a hard thing to do if you're
yeah,
if you're if you are a people pleaser, and you work hard to making sure everybody else
yeah,
is okay before yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I know you've been journaling a lot. I don't know, maybe you've been journaling by hand, and you
Continuously.
because you said, but
I do both. Yeah.
yeah,
I do all.
yeah, yeah.
All ways of journaling.
I do. I actually talk journal as well sometimes. So
Mm,
so I just learned about a new little tip this morning, but I haven't got it quite nailed yet. So that'll have to come in a future episode. But for me, a lot of this self realization and I guess the self love narrative has come out of writing my book and skimming over things, and then having my friends who have proofread or and my editors go, so what was really underneath that? What is really underneath that? And things. And I've realized that um, that it's something that I've blocked all my life. And I also remember a coach, friend and a coach said to me once, how do you feel about receiving? Oh, I can't receive without giving. I'm a human
mm,
giving.
yep.
No, yeah, a
Yep.
human doing, not a human being.
Yep.
A human
Yep.
giving, not a human being. So it's kind of all of those things. So I'm much more conscious. Everything starts with awareness, right? So if
100%.
you're aware,
Mm.
it's like, I'm going to go on a little segue now. You know, when people talk about unconscious bias, well,
Mm.
my argument is it cannot be unconscious. If people have told you that you've got bias, right? Then it is conscious. So intrinsic bias is what I kind of often use, but as everything starts with a flicker of awareness and you go, oh, hang on, I actually act like that. And in writing my book, I've realized that a lot of the things that and the situations I've been in where I've felt on the outside and not been part of things, nobody else has seen that because they've seen me as part of it. But for me, it was that inability to necessarily connect the incongruence of what people looked like and what they were saying. So I didn't understand those
Whoa.
things, and
Mm.
it was like, and I've only just learned the word incongruence. I was calling it duplicity before, but two-facedness. But
Mm.
incongruence is that thing that some people on that are neurodivergent, un, undiagnosed, but kind of see things in a different way and they hear things in a
Mhm.
different way, and then that's
Mhm.
always gotten in my way. But so being aware is going to help me practice more self-love, which then will go further to everybody else as well. That was
Yeah,
my
I
kind of
think you've
spiel on that. So
well, I think you tapped on a really important first step, which is building awareness. And
yeah,
sometimes, when you're talking about biases, there can be things around you, and until
mm,
someone puts the mirror up in front of you, your awareness of that isn't necessarily going to be apparent in your consciousness. But then also something that I picked up on what you said was about if someone brings it to your awareness, then you should be conscious. But I think
it's
people
still there.
choose, well,
Yeah.
it can be there, but whether you choose to engage with it or not, and
Mm, mm,
that's depends on what willingness and where you're up to
yeah.
in your season of life as to whether you want to acknowledge that and bring that awareness up. And
Mm.
sometimes I believe, and this is going a bit woo woo, the divine universe likes to put things in front of us that we perhaps have kept ignoring. And even though it is in our awareness, that the
Yeah.
universe will keep popping it up until
Yeah.
you work through it or process it. So,
Yeah.
and again, I believe that helps um, by processing things that are mirrored through your awareness.
Mm,
That is another step and another tool to
mm,
cultivating vitality in your life,
yeah.
because then you are presenting your authentic self without the mask, and you are
Mm,
congruent with
yeah.
with
Sure.
yourself in that time and that
I,
place.
I think it's important though to recognize that we do have choice. It is about choosing, but sometimes we're not
Mhm.
ready to choose yet. And that's what
Yeah.
I take from what you're saying there, that there are things and then it'll come up, this divine universe, will come up with it for you and things. But
Or
I
whatever
thought,
you choose to call God or, energy or
no, no,
whatever.
the higher
You know what I mean?
power is what I've used
Yeah.
it for, but divine universe, that works too, right? um, whatever works for us as individuals and in groups, I think. But if we switch on to something that is more on the physical level, not so
Hmm.
metaphysical, I guess, but is around um, inflammation. And we often blame stress for our fatigue or low mood. But recent research, and if you've been listening to any of the thought leaders out there, whether they're in tech or whatever, inflammation is probably the quiet thief of our vitality, of our health,
Hmm.
of our well-being. Um, so why don't you, from your medical perspective, take us away on around, you know, inflammation and things?
Mm, I kind of want to woo-woo a little bit before I go into the science, only because I think the things that you're saying, like stress, um, or the inflammation in your body is a trigger to bring something to your awareness.
Mm, mm, mm,
So I actually think that if your body's inflamed in a particular part, it's bringing to your awareness that that needs to be addressed. And whether that's
mm,
with modern medicine or whether that's with mindfulness and supplements or whatever, their inflammation to me is like a little signal that there's
mm,
something that you need to process and work through. And whether that's physical or metaphysical, it could be either. But if we're looking at it from a physical perspective, that inflammation is being connected to things like diabetes and IBS, your gut health.
yeah,
It's and it can inflammation can happen in any and every cell. So
mm,
I guess it's very dependent on the individual where that
yeah,
inflammation is coming up in, but we know as an
mm,
overall inflammation is sneaking up on us as a society
yeah,
based on our current modern day living, which is, sort of the fast processed foods, which
yeah.
can then cause all sorts of trigger because our bodies evolutionarily, our bodies aren't
Mm.
quite ready for that. That's only happened
No.
in the last 50 years, right? And
Yeah,
we're
yeah, yeah.
shoveling all this really highly processed, highly,
Look, I think this is
um,
the ultra processed foods and things like that. But I
yeah.
guess if we look at things to look out for when your body is inflamed, and we can
Hmm.
look at some of our own specific examples as well. But brain fog, is your brain as sharp as it used to be? Um, Stiffness, joints, irritability, restless sleep. You know,
Yeah.
they're not necessarily midlife or messy middle quirks or anything like that. They're clues. They're clues from your body
Mm.
asking you to listen, right? So, um, if I look at my journey, so I started doing something about this. Well, I've been trying to do it for a long time, but about a year ago. But I had I'm 62, so my brain left me about 10 years ago to go off on its own ways. It felt like that's the way it felt like to me. I didn't think of it as brain fog. I thought of it as like, okay, my brain just went out the window and I'm halfway through a sentence. Obviously, I've gotten it back a lot through that. I had joint aches, but I didn't really know because they've always been there, right? Um, uh, and I fall asleep really easily. And then I wake up. I wake up at 2 a.m. And
Mm.
my brain is going off on some secret race that I was not informed about all the things I need to do the next day, and little butterflies and little things that I have to remember. And then I'm too tired to wake up and write them down. And I don't want to wake my partner up, because we've got to be careful about everybody around. Anyway, those were my kind of different things. That I noticed in terms of, and that I've learned since that they are related to inflammation and things. And I do want to talk about that little sort of an extra bonus thing that I had at a later stage, but not now. How about you? what's been the things to watch out for that you've noticed in terms of inflammation in your body?
I feel like I'm 45, so I feel like from 40 onwards, I was just in this chronic emotional state of who am I? What am I doing? What the hell is happening in my world? And so I feel like any inflammation that came through my body, and mine showed up as a big lump on my throat, and then chronic stress, like I was saying before, I did more rather than sat quietly to listen, like, hey, what's actually going on here? So I feel like my inflammation was probably more along the emotional
Mm,
lines, which then
mm,
came out in my body, that were the signals for me to sort of start exploring
mm,
how I need to look after my body better, because I am now 40. And for me, I think 40, well, that's not even halfway, really. Well, close to halfway in my life. So I've
not even
still got a
halfway.
lot. No, not even halfway. So I've still got a lot to go. But it also, made me realize that my body is aging, obviously, to some extent, but my
Mm,
mind still thinks it's quite young. So, I
mm,
needed to marry them up a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah,
And I think in having that awareness, I started engaging with some things that I'd never done before, like supplements and
mm,
oils, and, really working on my rituals and routines that
mm,
help me regulate my nervous system, which the
mm,
combination of those things help me to reduce my
mm,
inflammation. So
yeah.
I think once you start doing one thing, it opens a door to another thing, and that thing helps the other thing. And when you bring them all together, you create this sense of vitality.
It's kind of interesting because we don't want this podcast to be about products or anything like that. But I was introduced to omega-3 and balance oils about a year ago, and I started taking them. It's a Norwegian company. Full disclosure, we'll pop it in the notes, but not go on too much about it. But I started because my sister had told me that. My sister's had chronic inflammation since she was a child. She used to come home from primary school and fall asleep, sleep for an hour before the rest of us got home because she's much younger than me. And so I started taking it, and I was going like 4 6 weeks in, and I'm going, I don't really notice anything. And somebody said, "Oh, my brain fog," and I went, "Oh my gosh." My brain is so sharp now, and I can switch from this thing to that thing to that thing without all the butterflies getting in the way, right? And things.
Mm,
And then a few weeks later, my gut pain disappeared. And then I realized that I don't have joint pains anymore. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I think now I can also share my bonus thing that I've just discovered because I just started doing yoga again. And I
mm.
do restorative yoga, which is quite deep.
I
I
love
hadn't done
yoga.
it for months, maybe years,
Mm,
right? Like properly.
mm.
And I was in agony for 3 to 4 days.
Yeah,
And I was going, what's going on? So I remembered that one of my friends had said, well, yeah, I know when my knees start aching, I know that I've forgotten to take my oils. And I go,
yeah,
oh yeah, I've not been good at taking, I've not really been taking them for the, for the last week.
yeah.
So I took them, pain gone within a day, right?
Mm,
And I've done several yoga sessions since then. I do not have any recovery time. I do not have pain.
mm.
I just go, oh, anyway,
Yeah.
sorry for going on that rant, but I just got excited about that last bit.
And
So,
I think that's a great, that shows your intuition, right? You're listening to your body and you're paying attention,
mm,
and you're responding, not reacting. You're responding with an informed decision to nourish it at the cellular
mm, mm,
level
mm.
to address the inflammation. So, and the ripple effects start from the cell all the way
Yeah,
out. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
love that. I
yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
And,
Sometimes
similarly, excuse me, for me,
similarly.
similarly, I feel, as I said, mine was probably emotional. I was very emotional. We'd relocated. I was in a new space, and I just could not get my shit together, basically.
Mm.
And when I bumped into this product, it just helped me. Not like I was also having really quite severe night sweats, which I couldn't work out what they were, which still don't know if it's perimenopause or not. It doesn't seem to be, but I was just having wake ups and all sorts of crazy things. And I bumped into this oil, and I think, like what I was saying before, it just opened up these doors. Like it helped me calm my
Mm.
mind enough
Mm.
that I could start doing really simple rituals and that were intentional, and,
Mm.
just to
Yeah.
slow down more
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
what I used to do, get more busy. And
Yeah.
so that's for me how it's opened up new channels of
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
reducing my mental inflammation, I think.
I
And
think that is a big issue, with a big thing, and it's a whole concept that we're talking about here. So
yeah.
probably not full time to do that, but we will provide some resources on what we're talking about as well in terms of that. But we did promise that we're going to talk a little bit about the click, right? So how can um apps, AI, and small rituals really change and shift things. It could be just opening a tool or a mindset shift that reconnects you to yourself. So, with my background in tech, I've built tech to solve huge problems, pervasive problems. But now I kind of use it more to look at the more intimate ones, like reducing overwhelm and reclaiming mental clarity. And I think a lot of and I live in tech, but more on the consumer side of things, although I am getting involved in tech creation again, so that's a good thing. And just full disclosure, I'm adamant that we need many more women and other underrepresented people, specifically what should we call this? Wise women of all ages, to drive the way that tech is progressing in this world. But I think that the important thing for me is that tech, AI, exercise, supplements, whatever it is, need to be personalized or hyper personalized, if you like. So it's not what works for me doesn't work for Steph. Possibly,
No.
like Steph can sit and write and write and write. I kind of go and chat with ChatGPT and write that way,
Mm,
So
mm.
actually I do write. I do actually do quite a bit of writing as well, but not that goes out without being checked by my bestie, Gia, my little bestie. So I think that's an important thing, and I think tech, if we look at it from the tech perspective, or not just AI or anything like that, but it's here to stay. It's in our lives. We need to use it to help with our health and with our well-being, right? So we, rather than let it take over our lives, we drive it. So that's kind of my little tip for everybody, little tech tip. So as we wrap up, yes. So, but next week we're going to go a lot deeper into brain rot, AI, and omega threes. Is tech frying your mind, or can you actually help? Can it actually help you get clarity back? You choose which click you go with. Choose how to Vitalify. Right. Well, thank you, Steph, and thanks to our audience. We look forward to engaging and talking about topics that you're interested in.
Thanks for joining us on this first step into redefining vitality. In our next episode, we'll explore the blurred lines between brain fog and brain rot. Is tech frying our minds, or can it actually help us find clarity? Tune in, get curious, and choose your click. See you next time.